Welcome once again to Consumer Law Hub. Here's Gabriel. This is one of those most amazing coincidences in life. Just a couple days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine about moonshiners, people distilling alcohol for household or family use. And my friend said, Steve, it's one of those things where it's been a federal law on the books about it forever. And I thought to myself, I've known that. I was aware of that, but I never thought that much about it. We all saw The Untouchables, right? But several people sent me a note yesterday, but I'd already seen this cross my desk on my own. U.S. Appeals Court declares the 158-year-old home distilling ban unconstitutional. And it turns out that the law about this dates back to the 1860s. And apparently nobody had ever bothered to fight it and say, is this law even constitutional? And I admit, I'd never even thought about it because it's not in the field of law I practice. I practice in consumer protection. I've never had someone come to me and say, hey Steve, I'd kind of like to make moonshine. Could you help me out with that? Nobody's ever asked. Nobody's ever asked. So, headline, U.S. Appeals Court declares a 158-year-old home distilling ban unconstitutional. Kevin, Alan, Andrew, Heron, and JP are all people we've talked about this with me. Jonathan Stemple wrote this for Reuters. A U.S. Appeals Court on Friday declared unconstitutional a nearly 158-year-old federal ban on home distilling, calling it an unnecessary but also improper means for Congress to exercise its power to tax. And so a lot of people, I think, assumed that the home distilling ban was to keep people from making dangerous stuff. You all have heard the stories about the bad batch of moonshine that caused a problem down in the holler. Think about this. It would have destroyed about half the plot points of the Beverly Hillbillies because Granny was always working on her medicine. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, New Orleans, ruled in favor of a nonprofit hobby distillers association and 4 of its 1,300 members. They argued that people should be free to distill spirits at home, whether as a hobby or for personal consumption, including in one instance, somebody wants to create an apple pie vodka recipe. I read the opinion, which is like 20 or 30 pages long, and the apple pie vodka recipe was mentioned in the opinion, and I was thinking to myself, boy, that sounds interesting. The ban was part of a law passed during Reconstruction back in 1868. Long time ago, I barely remember it. In part to thwart liquor tax evasion and subjected violators to up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Writing for a 3-judge panel, circuit judge said the ban actually reduced tax revenue by preventing distilling in the first place, unlike laws that regulate the manufacturer and labeling of distilled spirits on which the government could collect taxes. So they said it's illegal to make the stuff because people won't pay taxes on it. Why not let them make it and then tax it, and then if people don't pay the taxes, then you get them for not paying the taxes. And it is a convoluted argument. So she said that under the government's logic, Congress could criminalize virtually anything done at home that might escape notice from tax collectors, including, people working from home or people with home-based businesses. Without any limiting principle, the government's theory would violate this court's obligation to read the Constitution carefully to avoid creating a general federal authority akin to the police power. It's one of the things I was talking about with JP. My good friend JP is an expert on beer. I'm not. I suspect he drinks some of it, but he's an expert on it. He knows all about who makes it, where it's made, the small distilleries, all the good stuff, the brewers and all that. And he and I are discussing this, and he goes, "It's fascinating because states don't seem to care. It's the feds, and it's one of these things that goes so far back that people have forgotten. Like, wait, why? It's all about the taxes." Supposedly, the U.S. Department of Justice had no immediate comments after they lost another defendant. The Treasury Departments did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and that would be the Treasury Department's Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. Meanwhile, a lawyer representing the Hobby Distillers Association said in an interview that the ruling is an important decision about the limits of federal power. Another person who argued the nonprofit's appeal called the decision an important victory for individual liberty that lets the plaintiffs pursue their passion to distill fine beverages in their homes. He said, "I look forward to sampling their output. The decision upheld a ruling that came in 2024 by a U.S. district judge in Fort Worth. He had put his ruling on hold so the government could appeal. So I think I may have done a video about that. Several people told me I did, but that would be a couple years ago. And after you do, I don't know, 300 or 400 videos a year, they tend to blend together. But what got me and my friend JP talking about this was the appearance on my set of this. Now, this is bourbon. This is professionally distilled bourbon by a company down there, I believe, in West Virginia. And I believe that the people who made this are descended from either the Hatfields or the McCoys. The Hatfield-McCoy thing was so long ago, most of us have forgotten what we were fighting about. But I spoke to a group of people from the West Virginia Bar Association just a couple weeks ago, and as a thank you for doing that, I was gifted this. And I mentioned that I'm not a drinker myself. I don't drink a lot. In fact, I can tell you the last time I had a beer, and it was 2 years ago, and I can tell you where it was. But the point is, I said, no, but I think this is really cool for its historical significance, and I like putting stuff on my set. You know, whether or not it's something I'm going to use like a Civil War saber. I'm not going to go out and get in a sword fight, but I think it's a cool thing to have. So, I thought this was pretty cool, and I put it on the set, and it got me and JP talking about, you know, home distilling and so on. And the interesting thing is, you know, there's a TV show, reality show, about people who supposedly are moonshiners. And I've always wondered about, you know, how real any reality TV show is. But the point is that I'd never stopped to think about the logic behind this, because I had always assumed that if you ask somebody, why don't you want people making their own alcoholic beverages at home in their garage, like I said, out in the holler, and people I thought would have said, oh, it's for health and safety for fear they're going to make a bad batch of moonshine and hurt somebody. And it turns out that the defense of it is no, 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 no. We simply would want to tax it, and those people wouldn't pay taxes. And so it seems like a very strange argument to say we don't want you to make something because we don't think you'll pay taxes. If the government wants to raise money through taxes, follow my logic here. You'd rather have them make the stuff and pay taxes on it. And, you know, we have all these microbreweries around now, places that, you know, make their own beer. And I suspect many of them are paying taxes along with selling their products and so on. So it's a fascinating idea because, like I said, it's been a law on the books since 1868. 1868. And of course, when Prohibition came in, the Volstead Act, when Prohibition came in, a lot of this was on the rise. And then, of course, you had all kinds of crazy stuff, including, as I mentioned earlier, the Untouchables, another story altogether, and Al Capone, and so on. And then, of course, one of the arguments against Prohibition was, well, people are going to drink. The question is, are they going to drink the stuff that's been made off the books someplace? Are they going to drink the stuff that's been taxed properly? And of course, if they had just said when people were allowed to drink, well, you can make it. We're just going to tax it. And if we catch you not paying your taxes, then you get in trouble for not paying your taxes. So, it seems that this law, if you look at it, really was passed probably to stop people from drinking, as opposed to people avoiding their taxes or evading their taxes or whatever you want to call that concept. So, there you go. But thank you to everybody who sent it. JP had a great conversation. Also, Andrew, Heron, Aylin, and Kevin, Jonathan Stumple wrote that for Reuters. U.S. Appeals Court declares the 158-year-old home distilling ban unconstitutional. And I got to admit, the logic behind it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm just surprised nobody bothered to appeal it until recently. So there you go. Questions or comments? Put them below those. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. The questions are complicated and the answers are so simple.